This rhythm is not mine. It comes from all hearts beating. All things opening and closing. It comes from the silent movement of fishtails in the ocean. And from the swinging of waves and tides. No, this rhythm is not mine. It comes from the woodpecker. And from the way the ants parade across the ground. It comes from the circling sun and the swaying leaf that falls every autumn. No, this rhythm is not mine. But none of these can claim it either. Not even the spinning moon in all her waning and waxing can boast its creation. This rhythm is old. And as constant as our sure death. And as sure as the way morning appears, again and again on the horizon. Nothing does not dance to this rhythm. It is heard in every speck of all the world. Even the gods are forced to step in time. It's been around so long, it never began.
Hi, welcome. So happy to see all of you. So happy to be together. Together again. Whether in this linear lifetime or some other time, I know we've all been together again and again and again. So thank you so much for being here. I love that song. It's This Rhythm Is Not Mine by John DeCat. And there's an instrumental version of it as well.
How is my speaker not working?
But I love the version with his spoken word in it because it's so deep and it's so apropos for this eclipse season, especially. So again, thank you. Thank you for saying yes to this. And I'm so happy to share a lot today. I'm just making sure that people are muted for now so that there's not background noise. And for the most part, we'll probably stay muted unless I make a specific request to unmute. But I think in the interest of time, we'll probably stay on mute today. With that said, I am going to welcome participation. So if you are able to write some comments in the chat as we go along, would really love to hear from you today. So be prepared to put some comments in the chat when that's invited. So before I introduce myself, I would love to know who you are. So take a moment, if you can, to put in the chat, who are you? Where in the world are you? And what is the earth like where you are? And what is the sky like where you are right now? Where in the world are you? And what is the earth like? What is the sky like where you are? This is gorgeous. Thank you so much. Love hearing from all of you and sensing into your place. As we were coming on the call today, I was just feeling so ecstatic about this opportunity to get on our devices together and sort of create an astral temple, an astral room. So as weird as it is to use this technology and as disconcerted that I feel about that sometimes, I feel like just the fact that we can all like sit together with our coffee or our tea and our snacks and our journals from wherever we are in the world and connect over this information, it just lights me up so much. So I feel all of you here, and thank you for giving honor to the ground where you are. And let's take a moment, if you're finished typing where you are and who you are, let's take a moment to just give some gratitude to the land, give some gratitude to the soil. So that might mean closing your eyes, it might mean laying down for a brief moment or touching the ground. But let's take the next 30 seconds to a minute to just feel some gratitude for the earth and specifically the land where you happen to be right now. Imagine sending that gratitude towards the plants and the animals that are around, the insects, the stones, the waterways. And if you've ever laid on your back and looked up at the night sky and seen a shooting star or a bright planet or a constellation, calling forth that feeling, invoking that feeling of wonder and connection. And however the sky is for you right now, whether that is bright or dark, whether it's clear or cloudy, see if you can hold that feeling of wonder as you open to this earth and to the sky today. And we all are opening to the earth wherever we are together at the same time. And I just love that feeling of blanketing the planet with our gratitude and our wonder and our attention. So my name is Virginia Rosenberg. I'm an intuitive astrologer. I'm a seer. I'm a writer. I'm a mother of two. You'll probably meet my 7-month-old son. I'm sure he'll need to eat while we're on our call, so you'll have a baby sighting. And my assistant Auburn Lily is also on this call today, and she will be there to maybe respond to some comments in the chat, or if there's any tech glitches that we have or my internet goes out or something, she's here as a backup support and she'll like take the lead and help us out if something is to happen. I want to just give a little voice to what astrology is and my approach to this work before we get started today. So astrology is an ancestral practice of viewing the sky and observing experiences here on Earth and matching up, linking up, making connection between the movements and the orchestrations that are transpiring in the sky and the experiences that are happening through us and through our lives here on Earth. It's a practice of wayfinding. It's a practice of divination. And it's also an alchemical practice of self-awareness and self-discovery. And I find astrology to be a technique for natural healing as well. So part of my philosophy is that you already know astrology. It's in your bones. This as above, so below, as within, so without, that everything is connected and all of existence is a reflection of you and vice versa. That this is innate knowledge, this is innate wisdom. So whether or not you've studied astrology or you have all the terminology or the language down, or you've gone into every little rabbit hole and complexity that exists in astrology, that's all of that is great if it's happened. And if you're totally novice, that's wonderful too, because again, this wisdom is innate to you. It's ancestral. It's been passed down through millennia. The type of astrology that we work with today in Western astrology, which is what I practice, goes back 4,000 years in recorded history. So this is just part of what we're up to as humans on Earth, is looking up at the sky and seeing ourselves reflected in the sky. And yeah, it's also a craft that involves meaning making, storytelling, myth making. I believe that stories are innate to our existence and to our comprehension and our understanding of ourselves and our fulfillment, our feeling of satiation as living beings. We need stories. And astrology is full of stories. It's a vault of archetypes and myths that we can pull from and that we also add to continuously. So astrology is like a living library, and that's part of my approach. So my approach to this work is intuitive, it's embodied, and it's collaborative, which means that I am not the expert. I've just been doing this for a while. I've been speaking this language and studying it in depth for the last almost 13 years now. And because I hold the belief that you're all astrologers too, and it's innate to you, you already know. And so as we go along today, I'll be inviting you to share. I'll be inviting you to give your input so that we can learn from you and your knowledge and your wisdom. And it'll be an invitation to kind of become more awake to the story that you're living into and what's going on for you personally and how that is woven into the connections that these archetypes bring forward that we'll be speaking about today. So I invite your participation because, you know, there's no such thing as like one standalone story that's the right story. We all know our own story by hearing each other's stories and weaving those together as well. I have notes, so pardon me. So what I'll be sharing today is specific to eclipses. I'm a depth teacher, so though this is a free class and it's open to the public, and I don't know who's here and what your experience level is, I'll be both just scratching the surface and making everything as comprehensible as I can for novices, and I can't help but just like throw a lot of knowledge down because that's just how I live and how I teach. Is I really give a lot of depth and a lot of content and a lot of meat. So be ready for that. But we'll be talking a little bit about the basic astronomy of eclipses, the astrological meaning of eclipses and their impacts on life, kind of what to expect. I'll share the dates, times, signs, and degrees of the upcoming eclipses in October and November. I'll share a really brief interpretation and the Sabian symbols for both of the eclipses, and I'll talk more about Sabian symbols when we get there. And just how to move, how to dance with these eclipses, what their effects generally may be, and what the tips are to thrive throughout eclipse season. So that's the lay of the land for where we're going in this next hour, 90 minutes, however long we take. So here we are. We are living through collapse. We are living through a change of ages. We're living through a major monetary reset that is global, and you may feel a tug of war going on between the past and the future. You may feel a tug of war between centralization and decentralization, or hierarchy and multiplicity. And we're right here at this edge. We're at this brink. We're at this precipice, and we've been here for a minute. It's not a quick process here, changing an age. We're all like turning this wheel together, and each of us in our life experience and our own consciousness is an agent, is one of the spokes on that wheel helping to turn it. It's intense, it's chaotic, it's beautiful. I was walking in the woods the other day where I live here in Western North Carolina. The trees are all turning to their real colors that are underneath the green. So as they wither, we see what they really looked like underneath that green. And it's been a drought here. And so the leaves are really falling off very rapidly. And as I'm walking in the woods, I'm hyper aware that everywhere around me is death. Everywhere around me is decay. And I'm breathing in the ethers of that soul release that surrounds me in this season. And it's so wrenchingly beautiful. This season of death is the season of life that I live for. I live for this. I feel so alive, surrounded by decay. So here come the eclipses as we're on this edge, and they're accelerating things even further. We're already in eclipse season. You may be aware of that. You may feel it. You may sense it. There's been a lot going on with the astrological weather. I'm sure this last month has been quite bumpy. And like lots of twists and turns and tangles. But this is the next thread, the next layer, the next flavor of change. I have an eclipse guide that you can get, and I'll talk about that more later. But if you sign up for the guide, right now, what's in the portal, there is a part of the guide that helps you set your intentions for walking into this eclipse season. So we set intentions, and then we go through the eclipses together, and then we do integration at the end. But I just mentioned that because we're already entering the folds of change. And so setting intention now can help harness your awareness to the alchemy of this time. So in previous societies, there was a belief that eclipses were malefic in their effect. And malefic means malevolent, means that they brought catastrophe and disaster. And I think it's pretty easy to see why, because the sun and the moon disappear. The sun and the moon go dark. So the main lights that we depend on, that we rely on, and that guide us through every day and every night, they go dark. They're hidden for a time during eclipses. And the mythologies, the lore around this was that there was some sort of beast, there was some sort of serpent or a mythological dragon that was devouring the sun, that was devouring the moon. And eclipses were also linked to major catastrophic events like earthquakes, hurricanes, the falling of great kings. So this is why the lore around eclipses has been that they are malefic. So whether or not eclipses are malefic, I think can be up to each individual's belief system and personal experience. But we're not going to just put like a blanket title on eclipses as malefic in this work, because it's more nuanced around like what actually happens for us and has happened for us within the scope of eclipses. And to go a little bit deeper in the meaning and to start to open up what eclipses are beyond just the disappearing of the lights, is the etymology of eclipses is to leave. The etymology of eclipse is an abandonment, or to forsake a usual place. I love that one. So what happens during eclipse season in our lives is we leave a usual place. So a door closes on the usual place, the familiar place, what it is that we've been involved in doing, maybe what we thought was certain. A door closes there and a door opens elsewhere. Another astrologer, Katie Sweetman, she talks about it as a curtain comes down on one act of your life and then it comes back up and there's another act beginning. And I love that. So this next couple months, we'll be leaving our usual place. We'll be abandoning that place, or maybe we'll be abandoned by the place that we have found ourselves to be in, that's become comfortable, that's become familiar, that's become known. There's an obscuring with eclipses as the sun and the moon pass into a shadow. The light becomes strange. Have any of you ever seen an eclipse? And if you have, just put a comment in the chat. What did that look like? What did that feel like, the witnessing of that eclipse? Eerie. Unusual. Liked it. Breathtakingly powerful, surreal, mystical, awe. It felt like a portal. Strange, mysterious. It felt like a pause. Hidden forces from the mundane world. Watching something ancient. Yeah, like a ritual, right? Like an astral ritual. Intense. The birds started to sing in the afternoon. Communion with what is left. Ah, thank you. It felt intimate, almost like I shouldn't have seen it. Yes. I love that, because the sun and the moon, when they're making contact, it's like a consummation. It's like an insemination of an astral seed. So when we're viewing an eclipse, it is, to me, there is this like erotic energy that is a part of that. So the light gets strange, it dims to shadow, and then it returns. And something's changed. We see things differently than before. Life has changed. I will share, I saw that eclipse, the total solar eclipse in 2017. I think it was 2017. And I was positioned on the rim of a canyon, like overlooking this canyon. And right before the sun got swallowed up, all the animals ran for cover. Like we saw the horses and the cows and the rabbits and everything just scattered. And when they got to cover, they went silent. Even the insects were silent. There was no sound for the moment of that eclipse. And it was terrifying. It was gripping. And I also felt so exposed being outside during that eclipse. It felt wrong to be outside and to be kind of watching it. So I covered myself head to toe with whatever blanket or fabric that I could find, because it really was a ceremony. And I also felt vulnerable. I felt this experience of purging going on for my energy body. And the way that I purge is I belch a lot. So I was belching everywhere. And but it was very palpable, the impact. And I remember the hair just standing up, all the goose pimples all over my body. So the power is undeniable. And there are eclipse chasers who like find where the next total eclipse of the sun is going to be, and they make sure to travel to that place so that they can get high from being in communion with that living ceremony and watching the beast swallow the sun. So thank you all for sharing your wisdom about your lived experience with observing an eclipse. I'm going to share my screen now and tell you a bit more about the astronomy of eclipses. So what are eclipses astronomically speaking? This will be brief, but I think it's helpful orientation and context. So there's something that we refer to as the ecliptic. And it's drawn here as a circle going around the Earth. But what it is as the Earth orbits the sun, it creates an apparent path of the sun around the Earth. So the sun isn't orbiting around the Earth, but it looks like it is from where we are on the planet. And that pathway that the sun traverses is referred to as the ecliptic. And then there are the lunar nodes, and this is the place where the orbit of the moon intersects with and connects to the ecliptic. So we're looking at these conjunction points of the moon's path and the sun's path. So those points where the sun and the moon's paths meet are called the lunar nodes. The north node is the node that demarcates where the moon is moving into the northern hemisphere, and the south node is the node that demarcates where the moon is moving into the southern hemisphere. In astrology, if we're talking about eclipses as this beast that's swallowing the luminaries, we speak to the north node as the head of that beast, that dragon serpent. So the north node rules over head-like activities, ingesting or increasing. So I think of the north node as what we're taking in, what we're consuming, what we're eating. Whereas the south node is the tail of that dragon serpent. This is the place where we're releasing, we're decreasing, we're discarding waste. But know that the way that these nodes function is not linear. So it's not like we're only experiencing the south node or we're only experiencing the north node. Just like you can't eat something without getting rid of it out of your body, you know? So there's a circuit that's happening and we alternate between experiencing the north node and the south node. So there's sort of like an infinity loop that is tying these nodes together. Eclipses always occur during new moons or full moons. These are the moments when the sun and moon are conjunct, snuggled up together, or opposite one another, like they're staring at each other from across the room. So these are the times that eclipses happen. It's during new moons and full moons when both the sun and the moon are making contact with the lunar nodes, that place where the sun and the moon's paths connect. Eclipses also always come in pairs, or sometimes they come in triplets. This season, they're coming out as a pair, a set of two. The solar eclipse always happens on the new moon, and the lunar eclipse always happens on the full moon. So the solar eclipse that happens on the new moon is when the moon blocks the light of the sun from our perspective here on Earth. So Earth is in the moon's shadow during a solar eclipse. And the lunar eclipse on the full moon, here's the sun and the moon opposite each other, making an opposition that creates the full moon, is when the Earth is moving in between that opposition. So the Earth is blocking the light of the sun and the moon is in the shadow of the Earth. And it often can create this orange or blood red effect on the face of the moon. So what eclipses are, astrologically speaking, is they're extra powerful lunation. A lunation is just a new moon or a full moon, or when a way that the sun and the moon are making contact with one another. And eclipses bring accelerated change. So I'm going to stop my screen share now so I can just talk to you all. There we go. So they bring accelerated change. And one way that I've experienced that is we can often sense what needs to shift or what is going to change. Not always. Sometimes it does catch us totally by surprise. But sometimes we can feel it on some level of our being, like, I can't work this job forever, or, you know, this relationship feels like it's coming to a close and maybe it'll be in a year. So what eclipses do is they totally speed up that timeline. So if we think it's a change that maybe it'll happen in 6 months, maybe it'll happen a year or two from now, eclipses tend to bring it up and pop it right in front of you in the moment. And they say like, oh, well, you thought that was going to be longer than it was, but it's not. Like today is when this change is needed. So they bring those types of accelerations. And let's see what else. Yeah. And the way that I've talked about them in the past and how I continue to experience them is they're turning points. They tend to reveal things to us after a concealment. So there's a concealment because the light is going away, but when the light returns, there's a revelation of some kind. And that revelation leads to sudden adjustments and portals that open to unknowns. So a shorthand way that I'll say this is that eclipses bring life-changing endings and beginnings. They tend to coincide with significant life events like pregnancy, marriage, breakup, a shift in career, maybe moving residences. Health issues can either flare up or they can find a resolution. Or maybe there's a coming to completion with a major course of study or a project that you've been involved in for a long time. So solar eclipses bring new beginnings and opportunities because they occur on the new moons. And lunar eclipses bring culminations and emotional endings. So I'd like to ask you here, if any of you remember major life events in accordance with eclipses. Do you have your own personal examples? And I'll share two of mine, but I'd like to hear from you all first. Yeah, any examples that you have connected to an eclipse? I'm going to read some of these examples out. I moved to a different city where I lived for the last 5 years immediately after the last solar eclipse, divorce with a lunar eclipse, breakup of romantic relationship, moved across country, separated from my marriage, life-changing illness on a lunar eclipse. Mother went in labor with me at the hour of a lunar eclipse. Final decision to divorce. Stillbirth of first child, birth of second child. Wow. Separation from a 9-year partnership, new job opportunities. Haven't been aware to correlate. Quitting my job. Quitting a job I never thought I would leave. Transition of my dog. Ceremonies that brought big insights about ancestors, cancer diagnosis, when I became a caretaker. Wow, so much that you've already tracked here. Thank you for sharing. When I was thinking about my own personal examples, one that I remembered is years and years ago, I was in a relationship that was very dear to my heart and was very unhealthy for me. And I remember I had a dream that I went outside and I was looking at the moon and it was red. And this was at the very, very beginning of my astrological studies. So I hadn't gone kind of deep into the eclipse rabbit hole yet. So I had this dream that I was looking at the moon and it was red. And then maybe it was 1 or 2 weeks later, I got a call at like 2 a.m. from this person I was in a relationship with. And that was the last straw for me because he used to call me all around the clock. Like if he couldn't sleep and he was up in the middle of the night, he would call me. And I just was at a point where I was like, I can't do this. Like I can't answer the phone to have deep emotional conversations at 2 a.m. Like I just can't do this anymore. And that was the end of our relationship. And then I realized upon reflection that the night that that happened was a lunar eclipse that I had dreamed about a couple weeks prior. So that was one example, was the end of a relationship, lunar eclipse. And then another example was I was walking in the woods, I guess, yeah, this was last year. And I was spending some time at a stream and just communing with the forest. And when I was walking away from the stream, I had a spontaneous vision that I was pregnant. And when I got back into my car, I didn't think much of it. I was like, oh, that's fun. Like I must be, pregnant with a project or something. And when I got back to my car, a friend of mine who is a midwife texted me, and she said she had had a dream that the night before that I was pregnant. And then the next eclipse that happened maybe a week or two after that, I became pregnant with my son that you'll probably meet in a little bit. So those are some eclipse stories that came through for me as I was reflecting on all of this. So pay close attention to your dreams and your visions, in addition to what's actually going on in your real life. Because I think that the astral impulses, they really come through our dreams and visions. So what we'll expect for this season is time will speed up. Truth may be hidden and then revealed. There may be an unexpected shift in direction. These are catalyzing moments for us where the underlying character of things are exposed during eclipse season. It's also superpowers can be activated during eclipses. So if you have some gifts that maybe you kind of know about, but you haven't really been drawing upon, then the eclipses want you to pull those forward. They want you to live into your gifts. They want you to live into your adaptabilities, your resilience. So they can bring confronting situations so that we can sort of rise to the occasion. Something I always like to remind myself and others about eclipse season is that emotions run really high and projections run really high, and experiences are ultra subjective during eclipse season. So it's not to say that your experiences aren't true because they're true, they're your experience. And it's like to take care not to immediately react to the shifts that are happening, and see if you can kind of notice what's going on and take a breather, take some space, allow yourself to integrate what's happening, to kind of sit with it. Because often people make snap judgments or set ultimatums. And if you do get an ultimatum set, then it often is final during eclipse season. And just know that if you're going to set an ultimatum or be on the receiving end of an ultimatum that's being set, you want to have enough space and like breathing room to really feel into it and kind of work with what's coming up for you before you come to a completed decision, if that makes sense. So often decisions are kind of thrust upon us during eclipse season, and we can't always avoid making a decision. But while time is speeding up, if you can slow it back down and take a walk and really feel your way through and breathe through it and process a little bit before responding, that's a tip to thrive throughout eclipse season. Eclipses happen every 6 months. So we're getting these kind of crescendos every 6 months. And then the other thing to know about eclipses is that they're colored by the signs that the nodes are in. And we'll talk about that more in a moment. Yeah, so actually I'll just tell you that now. So I'm going to tell you more about the signs of these eclipses and give some interpretation. But the eclipses carry the energy of the archetypes that they are residing in. So right now, those archetypes are Taurus and Scorpio, and we'll talk about that more in a moment. But the nodes, they move and they remain in a sign for about 1.5 years at a time, which means if there's eclipses every 6 months, we usually get 3 sets of eclipses in one set of signs. Okay, so this is the second set of eclipses coming up in October and November in the Taurus and Scorpio signs. And the first set of these eclipses occurred in April and May of this year, April and May 2022. So take a moment now to look at what was up for you in April and May of this year. And if you have something come to mind, put it in the chat so we can hear from each other. What was going on for you April and May of this year? Wow. So take note of the themes that are connected for you personally with the April and May eclipses, because that is going to hold information about this set of eclipses in October, November, and the next set of eclipses 6 months from now as well. So for example, I see like divorce. So there might be a self and relationship theme. I see a job. That's obvious, could be a job theme, a career theme. I see surgery and recovery. So there may be a healing theme. I see community as a theme. My daughter got sick, so there may be a theme of children or tending, caregiving, moving, travel. So take note of these themes because they may be recurring once more in relationship to these upcoming eclipses. So the themes that you lived through personally may be happening again. So for me, what I remember from the April-May eclipses is we had been looking for a home for a year and a half, and we found what we thought was the right one, and we put in an offer and it didn't get accepted. And it was like, you're right there, like the sellers were basically offering it to us. And then somehow it didn't get accepted. So it created this really big reckoning. So for me, it had to do with home. And now I am in my new home and we're like fixing it up and making it our place. So for me, I know that part of this theme in my world with eclipses is going to have to do with home. All right, how are y'all feeling? Are you doing good, or would you like to have a little break before we continue? If you want to break, wave your hand. Yeah, I'm kind of feeling a really short break too. Let's go maybe 4 minutes and then come back. And Auburn will play some music for us. Yay, welcome back. Auburn, I don't know if your serpent is handy, but yeah. I wanted to just, would you mind introducing your serpent as like our mascot?
This is Sarabi. Let me see where her face is. She's being camera shy. As soon as we started, there's her little face. As soon as we started, she was like up on the tank wall, like, let me out. So I put myself off camera and like picked her up, and she's been hanging out pretty much the entire time that we've been together. Ball pythons are from like the sub-Saharan part of Africa, and her name is Sarabi, which is from the Lion King, but it's also Swahili for mirage. So very fitting. Yes. Oh my God, I love her too. She's literally the greatest ever. So sweet.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Sarabi. And thank you, Auburn. Sarabi is the perfect mascot for eclipse season because eclipses are all about evolution and shedding our skin. Shedding our skin and letting there be a new, fresh, raw skin that gets exposed underneath. I saw in the comments that there was a question about the last set of eclipses, and the dates for those were April 30th, 2022, and May 15th or 16th, depending on your time zone, 2022. So if you're looking to get really granular about what happened in your life surrounding those eclipses, those are the dates. But know that eclipse events don't always happen exactly on the eclipse. Sometimes they happen a little bit before the eclipses, and sometimes they happen after the eclipses. And this is a 1.5 year long period when the nodes are in this particular portion, bringing forth some archetypal themes. In our case right now, those themes have to do with Taurus and Scorpio. So what eclipses do is just bring that process that's already happening for us based on the placement of the nodes. They bring those forward so that we can see them and kind of deal with those themes more directly and more clearly. So the eclipses that happen now in October and November, the energy of these, the events that are transpiring are really going to be in motion. Not if they're not in motion right away, or if it's not totally obvious right away, if you look back 6 months from now, you'll see it. So they hold influence for the next 6 to 9 months because the nodes are going to remain in Taurus and Scorpio until I think it's in July of next year. All right. You want to know about these upcoming eclipses and when they are? The next eclipse on the docket is a partial solar eclipse. It's on October 25th, 2022. And I'm like, why not? I should just probably, yeah, I'll put this up so you can have a visual. Here we go. So October 25th, 2022. And that eclipse is going to occur at 2 degrees of Scorpio. And it'll be exact at 6:49 in the morning, Eastern Standard Time. The eclipse that follows that is a total lunar eclipse. So the moon will be a blood moon. And it occurs on November 8th, 2022 at 16 degrees of Taurus. And it's exact at 6:01 in the morning in Eastern Standard Time. So these are the coming eclipses. Just want to leave this up for another moment for those of you who may want to write down this information and mark it on your calendar, what have you. And eclipses hold influence for everyone. So their impact is universal. I'll stop the share now. However, they have especially strong effects for people with sign placements, these eclipses for sign placements that are fixed. So if you have Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, if you have any of those fixed signs that are present in your chart or emphasized in your chart, that could mean your sun is in Aquarius or your rising is in Scorpio. It could mean if you know your whole chart and your personal planets and your outer planets are all represented, and you know how to look that up for yourself, then you can get really granular and nerdy with your awareness, and you can have a lot of revelations with that. But generally speaking, if you know that you've got like your sun, moon, or rising in a fixed sign, then you know that these eclipses will be especially impactful for you because they're going to be angular for you in relationship to your fixed signs. So now what I want to share about is the nodes being in Taurus and Scorpio. The north node is in Taurus and the south node is in Scorpio. This is the axis of power and resources. So the nodes have been in Taurus and Scorpio since January of this year. So all of this year in 2022, we've already been kind of gaining awareness of the themes specific to Taurus and Scorpio. I'd love to just invite you all to share like any associations that you know of or that you have with these signs of Taurus and Scorpio. If you could drop those in the chat so we can start to gather a wealth of information about the themes of these eclipses based on their nodes. So what do you know about Taurus and Scorpio? Mm-hmm. So I'll read some of the comments here. So I see Taurus, earth connection and skills, food, physicality. I see life and death being represented by the Taurus Scorpio nodes, simplicity and complexity. Taurus incorporates pleasure, the food chain, fertility. Scorpio is intense, extreme, death, transformation. Scorpio, sexuality, darkness, water. Taurus, comfort, stability, earth. Scorpio, going into the depths or what's below the surface. Scorpio, mystery. Taurus, embodiment. Absolutely. So there's so much wisdom here. I'll read this one out too. Money, finances, wealth, and security. Has anyone thought about money, finances, wealth, or security this year? Has anyone thought about that? Yeah. Seems like it's top of mind. So some obvious things in the collective that it's like, if you want to know what it means that the North Node is in Taurus and the South Node is in Scorpio, like you can just look around you. you can look to some of the collective interests and the conversations, the dialogues, the thoughts at the front of mind and in the back of your mind. So some things, it's like, are these eclipses going to bring up issues of energy security? Are they going to bring up issues of like the supply chain that's been broken down the last couple of years? Will they bring up issues of food security, of financial ruin, of yeah, I think we're really teetering on this edge of stability, which is Taurus, stability, predictability, security in a material sense, and Scorpio, which is like the unknown, the total mystery, and has the potential for death and destruction and transformation and rebirth. So these themes are going to become ever more active throughout the eclipse season on a global sense. And a big question for me around it is like, what is reality? What is physical, tangible reality actually made of? And how is our consciousness in relationship with what's happening on the physical, tangible reality? And Scorpio is not about our consciousness in the way that we can clearly see it or know it. Scorpio is about our unconscious. Scorpio is about what's in the shadow. It's about the things that we have emotional or psychological charge around that sort of pulls the strings underneath the surface, whether or not we're privy to it. It's like those unconscious patternings are the seat. They're like the throne of the material world. So of course there's a quality of like trying to manifest with like your conscious mind intention, but what is your unconscious doing, and how is that involved in the process of manifesting reality? Scorpio is also the realm of erotic energy, sexual energy, magnetism, but it also is a place of manipulation. So it's looking at those qualities of how we're magnetic and how we're drawing things to us and receiving things, but also how we're being drawn into things, how we're maybe being pulled upon or manipulated to do things that maybe we wouldn't have done on our own, but there's just a magnetism to it. So there's going to be a lot of awareness that springs forward for us over this next couple months about like what reality is made of and what is the relationship between compost, death and destruction, and fertility and rebirth. The other thing I want to say here, and I'm going to outline a few more things about this axis, is that Taurus and Scorpio are fixed signs and eclipses bring change. So these eclipses are bringing change to fixed areas. Fixed signs, their job is to hold. Their job is to gather. Their job, they don't want to let go. So these eclipses are about letting go where it's hard to let go. And Taurus is where we hold on, but Scorpio is what holds on to us. What clings to us? Where are we invested? But also, where is something that's not us invested in us and our participation? So what's happening with our hooks? Where are we hooked in to dynamics that maybe are invisible or impenetrable, that we can't fully see or understand or know about? And how is that influencing and impacting our power? So these eclipses are going to bring up a lot about what we're invested in and what we need to divest from in order to inhabit our powerful embodiment and to become more real, to become more organic, to be earth, to be the earth that we are. So there is a quality here of like parasitic or vampire energies with Scorpio, things that are hidden but are siphoning our life force. And it's like, I've heard this, I don't know if it's true, but I think it probably is. It's like we have to say yes to that on some level. Like nothing can siphon our power away without our permission. So where are we removing that permission and removing those hooks of what's trying to steal from us, essentially? So so these signs are going to bring up themes of ownership, of earnings, of debts. Is someone calling in your debts? Are you calling in some debts on someone else? That can be physical, tangible debts. That could be emotional debts, psychological debts. This has tormented me for way too long. And actually, let's do a little practice with that right now, with that concept of there's things that we hold on to and there's things that hold on to us. See if you can bring to mind and put in the chat right now, what's something that feels like it's holding on to you? First thing you can think of, what's holding on to you? So I see a lot of you right away have examples. Fear, your ex, a family member, childhood abuse, grief, scarcity, toxic friends, financial debt, old stories of worth. General lack. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So these are things that are going to really come up during both eclipses, but especially October 25th is a solar eclipse in Scorpio, conjunct Venus on the south node. The south node is the place of purging and release. So even though it's a solar eclipse, which is a new beginning, it's like we get there by releasing and purging and clearing. So before I talk about the Sabian symbols and probably a little bit more about this Scorpio Taurus node scenario, I would like to read an invocation for all of us for this eclipse season. And take what speaks to you and leave what doesn't. But this is written by a woman named Audrey. Her Instagram title is Womb Root, if you'd like to go see this post for yourself. But I just pulled part of it that really spoke to me and felt so connected to this process we're walking towards through these eclipses. So here's the invocation. We do not hide the wildness that redeems us. We do not hide the animal body that fiercely purges the inorganic imprinting from our physiology. We remain innocent and wildly human because we protect our DNA from genetic modification technologies. We protect our minds from distorted fear, brainwashing. We protect our hearts from sour power, greed, and misguided empathy, codependency. Return, return. From the depths of the underworld, from inner earth, we are returning. Here to restore the organic, psychedelic fertility of Gaia, Sophia, of earth and womb. We are here to rebirth innocence. So it is. Yeah, so these themes that come with this axis are themes of survival and sustenance. They're themes of destruction and creation. And they're themes of urgency and intensity and groundedness and peace. So yes, the recording of this will be sent out. So during this season, this next couple months, release dependency on what's killing you. What's killing you? I can name a few things. Release your attachment to that. And embrace your body. Embrace the earth. Embrace slow, steady development and building and cultivation of the garden that is your worth, your worthiness, your willingness to be present in life and receive. Yeah, so this is about releasing what's killing us. And part of what's killing us is like living out as outsourcing our power, living outside of our own power. Our power to sustain ourselves, to nourish ourselves, to comfort ourselves. When I get scared about recession or what have you, I watch videos on YouTube of people building homes out of sticks. Because the reality is we don't need any of this. We don't need any of this. And we are here as a legacy of ancestors that goes back. No one even knows how far it goes back in reality, actually. So we were built to survive and to thrive. So this eclipse season really feels like a remembrance of what is inherent and innate at this nature level of how do we know ourselves as humans that are extensions of Earth and nature. Maybe that's been theoretical. It's not going to be theoretical for too much longer. We're building that. We are developing that. We are recreating the Earth in her own image. In Earth's own image. We are recreating ourselves in our own image. So change or die. And ironically, when we meditate on death, when we face mortality, when we face ruin and destruction, we can really live. We can actually truly live. And we come into contact with this principle of immortality that I promised to share. The principle of immortality is committing to life. It's like, how does immortality work? What is immortality? Immortality is the eternal life of the soul. Immortality does not work through cryogenics. It does not work through uploading your consciousness into the technological cloud. We have the technology. We are the technology of immortality already. And the more we invest in our life every single moment and fully presence ourselves to life that's right here, right now, that's how we're immortal. Yeah, we are already immortal. It's how much are we aware of that? How much are we living into that immortality? And a big way to live into immortality is to consider your imminent death and to consider the imminent death of what you know and what's all around us right now. These colors of death are vibrant. And when we breathe in the vapors that are released from these deaths, it reminds us that this is all temporary and that life finds a way no matter what, and that we've already been around in this earth and in this cosmos so many times, and we are each other. We all came from death. We're all made of death. And death is what brings us together. And this is how we're intimately connected. It's raw. So this is the kind of stuff that's going to come up. And actually, I think this is a perfect time to look at the Sabian symbols. So the Sabian symbols are channeled symbols by a psychic named, I think her name is Elsie Wheeler, or Ellie, is Elsie? Yeah, I think it's Elsie. This says Elise. But what she did was she just saw an image that was connected to every degree of the zodiac. And these symbols, I think they show up in dreams. Sometimes they show up in our real life. Sometimes they show up in our emotional landscape with the things that are going on. So this partial solar eclipse in Scorpio, which is on October 25th, the title that I gave to this eclipse is Undying Love. So there's a big theme of death and decay, but it's like at the bottom of that death, there's an eternal love and there is an eternal life. There is a gem of essence that is available that we can contact. So this eclipse in Scorpio is a lot of purging, a lot of release, and a lot of anchoring to what is immortal, what will remain. So the Sabian symbol for this eclipse, October 25th, the solar eclipse for Scorpio 2, is a house raising party in a small village and lists the neighbors' cooperation. And I love this one because it reminds me of the videos that I watch of people building stick houses. It's like when people work together, they can build a house in a day. So the theme of the Sabian symbol is working together. It shows people coming together in order to commune and build and accomplish something. So through acting as a community rather than separate individuals, difficult projects can be undertaken and completed. Sharing one's skills, resources, time, tools, and experiences can build worthwhile community values and enduring friendships that enrich and reward the community. Along with the labor, there's time to share a drink, a meal, and a chat, further drawing people into a sense of community and a shared purpose. So this is an interesting symbol because it doesn't feel very scorpionic to me, but it does in the way that when there is an event that is catastrophic, like the recent hurricane that affected Fort Myers, for example, you see people coming together where the coming together is necessary for survival and for continuance. And so that's how I see the connection with this symbol to this eclipse is like you're not alone. Whatever you're purging, whatever you're unhooking from so that you can reinvest in what's really needed at the time of this eclipse, call upon community, gather people together, accept help, cooperate with others, and give your help as well if someone is in crisis, because again, these eclipses are intense. The other eclipse, the lunar eclipse on November 8th, which someone mentioned is midterms. Yep, you got it. In the US, midterm elections. So fun. The lunar eclipse in Taurus, I titled that one Time Warp, because the feature of this eclipse is that it highlights the Saturn-Uranus square. I'm not going to go into this too much on this free call. We'll talk about it a lot in my eclipse guide that I'll tell you about at the end of this. But Uranus, suffice it to say, Uranus is the planet of reinvention, rebellion, and the future. So this eclipse is highlighting the future and this rebellion, this reinvention process that we've already been in for quite some time. Uranus in Taurus is part of the scenario that is creating the disruption of the food supply and the monetary reset, the change of values and resources and currencies, all of these things, Uranus in Taurus is heralding them. So what I want to suggest for this lunar eclipse in Taurus titled Time Warp is that eclipse is for big emotional releases that help you to quantum leap. So this may be felt as a breakdown, but let it also be felt as a breakthrough in material resources and psychological and emotional resources. So remember, ancestors are very much a part of the themes of these eclipses because Scorpio is involved. So draw upon the resource of the unseen world, draw upon the resources that are ancestral, both forward and back, because if we don't know where we're going, we can often still connect with a part of ourselves on a higher level that does see the future and does know the future and is actively creating and building the future. So this is a big leap, this lunar eclipse in Taurus. It's a breakdown, a breakthrough, and there is a dream that is calling. There is a vision that's opening up, that's kind of guiding our way during this lunar eclipse in Taurus on November 8th. And I'm going to share the Sabian symbols that are related to the lunar eclipse as well. There's two of these symbols, one for the sun, one for the moon. The symbol for the moon is a symbolic battle between the swords and the torches, confronting inner dualities. This symbol shows a battle between forces of good and evil, the struggle between spiritual and material, the internal dance of our choices that ultimately manifest into reality. Refusing to depend upon the past, the seeker must become a warrior and go head to head in an attempt to bring light and love to situations that seem dark or foreboding. Often there's a struggle between choosing necessity and personal desire. There's often corruption around, but the endeavor to bring enlightenment to people meets with severe resistance. True personal power is as much expressed in our ability to accept and adapt to the inevitable as it is to change the unacceptable, going beyond survival into spiritual nobility. So you'll have the recording for this. So whether or not you get the guide, you can reference these symbols as these eclipses come along and just see if the themes that are spoken through these symbols are alive for you in any way. And this is the symbol for the sun during the lunar eclipse on November 8th. A woman filled with her own spirit is the father of her own child. Complete self-determination. When we are self-empowered, there is no need to accept the imposition of understandings or receive permission on how to behave. Anarchy is the enlightened behavior of a self-realized being. Virgin birth is an image of creating our own lives out of our own visions, rather than from reactions to external input. This woman needs no external authority. This is a symbol of someone capable of self-referential decision-making, becoming the center of their own circle of influence. Any inclination towards escapism is evidence of lack of responsibility. The more we develop freedom to be ourselves, the more we attract responsibility, because freedom is empowering and power always comes with responsibility. And on the point of time travel, let me get rid of this real quick. There we go. Time travel is also an innate technology, and it's available to us whenever we want to access it. And it's available to us the more present we are and the more in our bodies we are, the more accepting we are of life in the current time. Ironically, like as we deepen into reality as it is, the future can come into being. And if there's some part of you that has been left behind, or maybe there is something you'd like to live into that feels like a distant memory of an ancestor or of like a version of time that was in the past, I really recommend utilizing this lunar eclipse as a time to practice time travel. That could mean just going back in time in your life to your childhood and welcoming a piece of you that got left behind back into your sphere to come with you where you're going next. Or, you know, maybe you remember being a druid eons ago and you want to make contact with that part of yourself and gain some wisdom and gather it and put it in your pack for where we're all going next. You can do that. You can do that through meditation. You can do that through journeying. You can do that while you're walking in the woods and just have a conversation out loud with that druid. So these are things that are immediately accessible to us and that we need no external technologies for. And so those are some of the things I wanted to share about the themes of these eclipses. And what I really love to do with this work is to walk with people together. So this is a free resource for everyone to refer back to. You can go back and look at the Sabian symbols. You can listen to the themes we talked about. And there's a PDF guide if you want to walk through these eclipses with your own just self-guided, like doing some journaling prompts, and you'll get emails when it's like time to revisit your guide. So you'll be prompted in that way to do some self-reflection and connect with what's going on during the eclipse season. And there's also a live guidance option where I really like to walk with you, and we do practices on live calls the day before these eclipses. We'll do practices around the themes of these eclipses having to do with immortality and time travel. We can do some practices together in that live guidance option. So those are all options if you want to move through this portal with some support and some awareness and some context and some intentional inner alchemy. And those the live guidance option is also going to be a place where you can ask questions, and we'll do Q&A. So today on the free call, we're not really doing that, but the live guidance option will be available for Q&A. And I'm looking at the chat now. I see a question of why did we look at 16, 17 degrees for Scorpio? Because that's the degrees for the lunar eclipse. The lunar eclipse is happening at 16 degrees Scorpio. So we pulled the Sabian symbols for 16 degrees Taurus and 16 degrees Scorpio. Yeah, that's why. So yeah, join me if you want to, y'all. But regardless, I think this is a meaty resource for you. And I just wish you the best blessings on this eclipse season. I feel like we're really in the heart of our evolution and our understanding of whether we're at the whim of the world or whether we are building the world. And I think it's a combination of both. And I think these eclipses are going to reveal more about that and give us an opportunity to really connect to our power ever more deeply. I love you so much. Thank you for showing up today. And you can refer back to this recording whenever you feel. We'll also send out the links for the eclipse guide, whether you want to do the self-guided option or whether you want to do the live guidance with me and join me for a couple calls the day before the eclipses. And we'll go from there. Blessings. Bye for now.